Well, good evening, IFL Nation, and welcome in to the place to be for Week 4's preview and predictions. It is 9 p.m. over here on the East Coast, and even though we're a day late once again, I will still say it out loud. It is Wager Wednesday in the Indoor Football League. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in and share a bunch of what's going on in the IFL, the week that was, the week that is to come. We'll get it all for you in the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes or so. For those of you who are new to the IFL or to this channel, welcome aboard. My name is Alex Schuberth. I am the lead IFL contributor for a sports forum site called Sports Coast to Coast. They are a Pacific Northwest-based sports forum site that specializes specifically in the coverage of the Indoor Football League and its 14-member teams, from up-to-date team rosters to game previews, recaps, and a whole wide variety of other analysis. Sports Coast to Coast is the place to be to enhance your fandom with the Indoor Football League. I've put a URL to that in the description, where you will also find the written version of my Wager Wednesday post that I put out earlier this afternoon. With all of the introductory bits out of the way, let us get in to Week 4 and everything that comes with it. So Week 3, what a great week of indoor football. We had a bunch of games really close, right down to the wire. We had a few different teams extend their undefeated seasons up to this point. From the betting perspective, this was a week where we kind of struggled last time out. We only won 2 of our 5 wagers. We'll get more into detail on each of those games in just a moment. But there you see a brief summary, a one-liner of what happened in each of those games. So we'll go through those, add to our season-long tracker to figure out any new trends or continuations of existing trends that we'll look to lean on when making our picks going forward. And once we have that all out of the way, we'll make our picks for Week 4, a loaded 7-game full slate, all 14 teams in action. We'll spread out the 7 games over the course of 3 days. We will make our game-by-game picks there, and then wrap it up with our 3-leg parlay attempt to try for what would already be our 3rd win in 4 tries there. So Week 3, we had one game on Friday to open it up, and it was the home opener, first home game in franchise history for the Fishers Freight, hosting the Tulsa Oilers in a game that was projected to be very, very close. This one did not turn out to be very, very close. This was as close to a masterclass effort as you could get from the Fishers Freight. Right from the jump, they were the better team. They got a defensive stop on Tulsa to begin the game, ran right down the field for a touchdown, and then they caught Tulsa napping, recovered an onside kick, and that really set the tone for the rest of the game to come. Before the Oilers could figure out what exactly was going on, Tulsa had run out to a halftime lead Fishers ran out to a halftime lead of 26-7, and they just managed the rest of the second half clock really well and limited any chance that Tulsa had to make a last-second charge back. Final score in that game, Fishers 41, Tulsa 29. Our pick of Oilers money line did not pan out this time around. We also had a standalone game on Saturday. This was another good one. Historic rivalry, local rivalry between the Quad City Steamwheelers and the Iowa Barnstormers. Quad City looking for win number 3, Iowa looking for win number 1. And the story of this game was the Steamwheeler defense. They made life miserable all evening for Joaquin Collazo III. He was picked off 4 times in the first half alone, ended up being intercepted 5 times throughout the course of the game. And amidst a crazy flurry of tempo and a lot of possessions for both teams, this bet ended up cashing for us. It took about 59 minutes for it to do so, but we did end up getting there. The Steam Wheelers using those takeaways, getting some great offense in the second half, and they end up beating Iowa 52-38. That game totaling 90 points, even though there was a 21-minute stretch in the first half when no points were scored. So we definitely lucked out a little bit with that one, but hey, we'll take it. No questions asked. We had 3 games on Sunday to wrap up the week, starting off with a big-time matchup in Green Bay, where the Blizzard hosted the Arizona Rattlers, continuing their homestand, which will wrap up this week. This game had an over-under of 81.5. We had predicted both offenses to keep on their dominant ways, and that's precisely what we got. I think both teams ended up only with a couple failed possessions apiece. Everything else was either touchdowns or field goals. Andrew Mevis in particular was a saint in this game, knocking through a couple deuces, a few field goal attempts as well. But Green Bay really feels like they should have had this one. They were leading the whole game, and then it got down late in the fourth quarter. They were up by 3 points, and then they were stopped by the Rattlers deep in Arizona territory, leaving just enough time for a last-second drive by the Rattlers, which was capped off by a Dalton Snead touchdown pass to Jamal Miles with 3 seconds left, ripping the hearts out of the Blizzard, who have had a relatively tough time closing out games in the early going. In this case, it proved to be costly for the home team as they lost 51-47, 98 points. That is the second highest scoring game of the IFL this season, as Arizona advances to 2-0, while Green Bay tumbles to 1-2. We had another really good game, the middle of the 3-game slate on Sunday. The Vegas Nighthawks traveling to Jacksonville to go play the Sharks. And this one was vintage Jacksonville in all the best ways. Perfect offense in the first half and perfect defense, quite literally, in the second half. The Sharks defense limited Vegas to 0 second half points. And that was really the backbone that paved their way to victory. Caleb Barker, another efficient outing. Jerome Johnson struggling with trying to solve that Jacksonville defense, which right now is looking among the league's very best. Final score in that one, Jacksonville 36, Vegas 19. We picked Vegas on the spread, and fittingly, they were the only favorite not to cover this week. So that's how it goes. So entering San Diego Bay Area, we held a 2-2 record. We needed the Strike Force to win in order to claim the winning week, but this one was not to be. San Diego did draw first blood, but couldn't get much of anything going the rest of the way, as the Bay Area Panther defense does what they do best. Multiple stops on fourth down, a couple key takeaways, and Joshua Jones getting back to the form that he won Rookie of the Year last year with. In the end, the Panthers claiming victory over their in-state rivals, taking the cake 41-18. So San Diego losing by 23. Obviously not going to get the job done there. So that is the path that we took to wind up at 2-3 for the week. Through 14 games of the season, we've gone with the point total in half of them. And we've been very successful with those picks so far. 5-2 overall, with 3-1 to the over and 2-1 to the under. We've nailed all of our underdog spread bets as well, but the rest of those bet types we've really struggled with, particularly on the money line, where we haven't hit one yet, at least from the single game betting point of view. Is this the week that perhaps changes? We'll find out. There's a look at our 3-leg parlay. We wanted atonement so bad after the way that the week 2 parlay crashed out, and boy did we deliver. Quad City winning got us going. Arizona stealing the game late in Green Bay kept us alive. And then San Diego Bay Area staying under 83.5 was what ended up taking us to the finish line to cash that parlay, paying better than 5-1. Already our second parlay win of the season. Keep in mind, we only won one of these last year. So I'm thrilled with how this is going so far. Hard to imagine that we could already meet our goal of 3 parlay wins after this week if all goes well for us. We will see what happens. So we'll look at our year-to-date results where we have trended below the 0 line, which is a little bit unfortunate, but such is life when you are operating at 50% efficiency from a win-loss standpoint without any plus money hits. Is that you're going to be down a little bit. It's just the nature of the game. The house is always going to take that little bit of juice. So in order to truly win, you've got to win far more often than you lose. So this is kind of a nice visual representation of that. And our year-to-date ROI, we started off with a winning week 1, about a even week 2, and a losing week 3. So it makes sense that the trend is kind of going downwards right now. But again, all it's going to take is one good week to prop us right back up. So that is what we're going to be going for this week. Our year-to-date tracker is fully up to date with all of our data. Week 3 kind of brought things a little bit back towards average. Case in point, spread betting between favorites and underdogs. Both sides have covered 50% of the time. Road teams still have a slight edge overall. Favorites are 8-6 outright. But the big story that is continuing on in the IFL is the streak of unders. 9-5 is the record there. So if you had spent the entire season from the very beginning betting nothing but the under, you'd be up pretty well right now. That 83.5 number that's highlighted on that table is the average over-under total of an IFL game this season. And we can see that once we go above 83.5, things kind of get dicey for overbetters. There was one of those that we did hit. It was the San Diego Vegas week 2 matchup that was at 84.5. That ended with the Nighthawks winning 48-41, just clinching that for us. So a little fortunate for us there. We've got some significant team trends as well. Quad City is covered in all 3. Green Bay has failed to cover in their 3 games. Iowa and Arizona have multiple games and multiple overs. They are the only teams with that distinction to this point. And a bunch of unders, not surprising considering the success that bet has had up to this point. So our team-by-team results. Again, we're kind of leaning a little bit on 2024 totals to this point to see where there are similarities and differences in the early going in 2025. That Bay Area under is still streaking hot. In the past 19, it has hit 14 times. Massachusetts on the spread similarly, but kind of in the wrong direction there, covering just 6 out of their last 18. And they have one of the hottest teams in the IFL coming to Lowell this week. So we'll have to see what happens there. And our bet results by team. In a different sort of look from last week, you can see those green bars at the total record column. That is my tracker to try to get each team to 7 wins on the season. Win at least 7 games. That was one of our goals. For all 14 teams this season, we got to try to get on the board here with Tucson and Tulsa. Even though the Sugar Skulls have only played 1 game. The past couple picks involving the Tulsa Oilers we have missed. Hopefully we'll be able to rectify and correct that ship with their game coming up. Now it is time for the weekly disclaimer section. The lines and odds that we're going to be using today are going to come from DraftKings Sportsbook, although there are offerings on FanDuel as well, at least in Massachusetts at least. But all the picks that we're going to be using and the way that we're going to evaluate these, as it always has been, is going to be through DraftKings. Next up, this series is purely for entertainment, curiosity, and for fun. It's not a money-making tool. Not coming out here saying that there are any locks, like this is guaranteed to happen. There's no such thing in the sports wagering world as a surefire hit. While watching this, you're more than welcome to tail my bets, but please do so at your own risk and wager responsibly. You must be 21 or older to play in most states. And I do recommend practicing safe gaming habits too, like setting a budget, risking only what you can afford to lose, manage your time wisely. And if you feel like you or a loved one is having problems with problem gaming, there's a lot of resources online that you can refer to. HaveAGamePlan.org is the example that I always point to. That is one of many that are out there that you can research and consult in the event that you feel like you may be on a slippery slope there. And with that, it is time to make some picks. As you can see, it is a loaded 7-game slate. That is a lot for one man to try to tackle on his own, which is why I have enlisted the help of tonight's special guest. This kid is a diehard fan of indoor football, one of many great content creators that the sport has to offer. He also does weekly previews, game recaps, and a whole bunch of other projects. He's got a pretty decent following as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome in the creator of the In the Alley IFL YouTube channel, Mr. Cody Bryant. Cody, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. For those of you who have followed Cody, you'll know that he ran the table with his week 5 picks, correctly guessing each and every one. So first off, Cody, congratulations on that.
I'll have to stop you
I don't
there.
think many fans realize how difficult that is.
See, it's
to go
difficult.
perfect in any given weekly slate.
It's difficult because I didn't. I was off by 0.5. Arizona minus 4.5. So
The humble guy. According to FanDuel, you're absolutely right. DraftKings had that for what it's worth at minus 3.5. So I'm going to show you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to count it.
Yeah, like I said, FanDuel kind of screwed me over on that one. But yeah, half a point away from having a perfect week. And then that's like the second week in a row I've had a hook cost me a bet. So like right now for me, my year to date is 9-5. I should be 11-3, but take them as you get them.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, it makes my 7-7 pale in comparison. So here's hoping that we can team up and make some pretty solid picks here. You ready to find some winners, my man?
Let's go for it.
I love it. All right, let me just take a second, get the site up and running here. And here we go. Hang on. All right, cool. All right, let's do it. First game is tomorrow night, 7 p.m. The Tulsa Oilers wrapping up their season opening 3-game road trip, taking on Green Bay, wrapping up their 3-game homestand of their own. The spread is Green Bay favored by 3.5, over under 78.5. Money lines Tulsa plus 130 and Green Bay minus 155. Your initial thoughts, Cody, on this one?
Betting wise or other? Because I think
just overall game preview, like players of note,
this
just
is
overall feelings of the game.
This is a desperation game for Tulsa, man. Like the way that they played against Fishers last week, this might be a wake up call for them. It's their final game of the road trip, like you mentioned. Checking up on the transactions page, their starting linebacker Calvin Bundage is put on season injured reserve. One of their starting offensive linemen has refused to report, so it's a little dicey for Tulsa right now. Again, they don't really have a running back per se. They're using their backup quarterback. It's a little dicey for them. Green Bay, though, they're coming off a tough loss. You know, they couldn't close out against Arizona. They had trouble closing out Iowa. So if it's a neck and neck game between those two, is it something where can Green Bay close it out? Does Tulsa have enough in their tank to pull an upset? I mean, I know they beat San Antonio in the first week, but I don't know. This one's actually kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, it goes with that whole idea of league-wide parity, right? Where you could see a scenario where either team pulls this one out. The thing that floored me the most, though, about when these lines open was my attention gravitated to that point total that I believe is much too low. I know the Tulsa offense has been struggling. They haven't cracked 30 yet in either game, despite, 2023 IFL MVP TJ Edwards calling the shots. And they are pretty shorthanded at the moment, like you said, with some of those injuries and players on injured reserve. But it stands to reason a TJ Edwards offense is going to have to wake up eventually. And a matchup with Green Bay's defense that has had similar struggles in terms of allowing points to opposition. They're at over 45 points a game at the moment. I just see upside here in both offenses ruling the day. And it's not like we need a crazy, 52 to 47 type of game in order to make this happen. Like something along the lines of like 45 to 38 would equally get the job done. Yeah. And I believe both offenses are capable of that. So for that reason, my pick is the over at 78.5. Where do you lean from a betting perspective here, Cody?
I mean, for me, the safest part is Green Bay money line. I think Green Bay is going to win. I'm scared of the hooks. I think Green Bay might win by a field goal, which that means Tulsa covers the spread by half a point, but who knows? Again, parity is kind of paramount in this league. I know Green Bay signed Tremont Watson on that defensive line, so that's even more pressure for that defense to try and get something going for Green Bay and stop the bleeding. Arizona scored, 6 passing touchdowns against them last week. So that secondary, which is hopefully really good, has kind of been a little washy in the first 2 weeks of the season. So for me, it would be money line, but I do like the logic of the over. Like you said, at some point, Tulsa's offense has to come alive. If they're going to throw the ball, now's going to be a chance to do it and really throw the ball and then still use TJ Edwards' legs. I think that's kind of the reason why the points are where they're at. I think Vegas thinks that both of these teams are just running quarterback runs. Kyvon Clark has been running like crazy, but it's kind of for me, it's what defense wins first, I guess.
Yeah, I do like Green Bay as well in this game. Just thinking about their tendencies of coming back from a loss. And obviously, you could make the same argument, too, with Tulsa. And if you do like them, plus 3.5 is a great number to get. It is past that key number of 3. So if the game comes down to, let's say, an Andrew Mevis field goal, he boots it through, Green Bay wins. Your Tulsa Oiler plus 3.5 wager would survive that. So should be a good one to lead off Friday. And that will fuel us to the second end of Friday's doubleheader. round 2 between San Diego and Vegas after these two teams battled in Front Wave Arena in week 2. The focus now shifts towards Lee's Family Forum in Henderson, where Vegas is favored by 4.5, over under 84.5. The Strike Force paying plus 164 money line, Vegas minus 198. I think we have another great game in store for us here, Cody. Your initial thoughts?
Both offenses need to get it here. Vegas was shut out in the second half against Jacksonville, and San Diego just looked off, man. They looked off against Bay Area. Nate Davis was not throwing it well. Wide receivers were dropping passes. Both these offenses need to get it going. What a chance to do it since they just saw each other a few weeks ago. For me, looking at the board, I think in a week to get things right, when you're playing each other again, I'd almost have to say under on this one, just because I think the defenses look a little bit better. But San Diego, was it San Diego? Yeah, San Diego got John Maldonado, the former Northern Arizona Wrangler, all into football last season. That's to help out the passing side of the running game could get going. We didn't have Trayvon Van last week to sell Larry McCammon, so we didn't really rely on the running game that much. For Vegas, they had their chances in the second half against Jacksonville. They just couldn't capitalize on it. That being said, though, I'm not sure. Because part of me wants to lean under, but anytime I do that, I know the over is going to hit. So talk me into either one of those.
Which one would you lean towards, did you say? I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you with the microphone kind of fading out.
Oh, my bad. I don't know if I need to look closer to it or not. But talk me into either over or under. That's pretty much where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that indecision because I looked at how this game shook out as far as the predictive stuff. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. There was no bet that I loved. So in the spirit of somewhat taking the high road on this one, my pick is Vegas Nighthawks on the money line at just under minus 200. This just comes down to me thinking that Vegas, even though they did have the setback in Jacksonville last week, is the better team right now. At least until San Diego kind of figures out what's going on with their offensive woes. It is tough to back them on a regular basis. But as we've seen throughout the years of, watching Nate Davis play football, any offense of his is capable of cracking 50 points. Same deal with Jerome Johnson and the Nighthawks. Last week for those two teams was just, you could say blips on the radar, but they were certainly not what we've come to expect from either side. But I do like Vegas. They're at home. It's the first game in front of the fans in Henderson. That would be my play. As far as the over-under goes, my model does have the over for that game with an average final score of around 48-42. So pretty similar to the first matchup where both teams kind of had it going offensively at various points. San Diego in particular was hot with their first 6 or 7 possessions before things kind of cratered down on them. Whereas Vegas was stopped those first couple times in that game and then pretty much ran a streak of perfection in their 20-point comeback.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to do a cop out or anything like that and just take the money line since I kind of did that with Green Bay. But I don't know. I think the defenses have another chance to get at each other. I think an under 84.5. I might have to disagree on that over and take that under instead. I think the defenses might be a little bit better.
All right. I like it. So there you have it. Under 84.5. Vegas minus 198. We'll see what happens. All righty. Saturday. Fishers at Massachusetts. This is the third and final game of the Pirates homestand before they take the road for the first time next week. They are rare home underdogs here, being given 5.5 by Fishers with the over-under 78.5. Fishers minus 185 money line, and Massachusetts plus 154. The Pirates are coming off a bye, during which they have basically retooled a bunch of their roster. They signed Felix Harper at quarterback, who may be getting the start on Saturday night. They brought in Martino Theus as their offensive coordinator after I found out that Anthony Payton left prior to the start of the season, who was in line to become the offensive coordinator. And on the special team side, Timmy Bleakroad is out after 2 games. In comes the all-time leading scorer in Pirates history, Josh Gable. The question becomes, can all of those pieces gel, along with the defense that's been pretty spot on, if we're being honest, through the first couple games? Is that enough, Cody, to keep them competitive in this game against the trendiest team in the league?
I think for me it comes down to turnovers. Massachusetts has turned the ball over quite a bit, especially against Quad City. And another thing I've noticed as well has been the Pirates have given up 2 games, 2 kick return touchdowns. For me, I don't think it's going to happen again. That minus 5.5, man, I don't know. I'm gonna ride the hot hand. I'm gonna take Fishers minus 5.5. I think Fishers' defense looks really good, and I think they're just gonna run the ball. They're just gonna run the ball, and then when you least expect it, pop it over the middle or over the top to JT Stokes or to Jordan Kress or someone like that, and that's what Dixie Wooten does, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I look at that spread and I look at Massachusetts' history whenever they've been set as the underdog, and more often than not, they've come out on top in these sorts of games. But as much as I want to take the 5.5 points here, I've got the emotional hedge with Fishers. And I will be the first to admit that that is part of the reasoning behind this bet. But like you said, Fishers, they seem to have it all going right now. And the Pirates are just kind of trying to figure out what works for them. Basically comes down to a matchup at perhaps the wrong time. Maybe if this game takes place in a week or two, maybe we feel a little bit different about the Pirates. But there's just too many questions right now. Could things click right away? Absolutely. We've seen that happen with Fishers, but in the end, it just comes down to which team gives you the most confidence right now. And the answer to that is Fishers. So I'm taking them on the money line. So either they give me my first money line bet win of the season, or the Pirates finally get on the board with a win. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go.
All right. So that will open Saturday's action. And an hour after that one kicks off, we get the back end of the home and home between Iowa and Quad City. Steam Wheelers given 7.5. Over-under is 85.5. Iowa plus 205 on the money line, and Quad City minus 250. Cody, given your inclination in favor of the Steam Wheelers, I will let you take the lead on previewing this one for us.
Yeah, so it's one of these. It's not necessarily rare because you'll see it multiple times throughout the season of like the back-to-back. So home and home, Iowa and Quad City, they just played each other. Quad City looked pretty dominant. Can Iowa get things fixed? It's just always been a bugaboo of mine in the indoor football league when someone just sits there and says, we are going to throw the ball and not even run it. And I couldn't count how many times Iowa ran it. It had to be single digits. They just abandoned it at some point. On the flip side, though, last week was last week. Last week was last week, and this week is something different. I think Quad City is able to regain themselves. They play each other close so many times. This is going to be a rarity. But plus 7.5 for Iowa. I just think it's close. I do.
Yeah, it's a great number too, right? You're at 7.5. You're above that key number of 7. So if it does come down to a touchdown, Iowa maybe covers through the back door like they've been notorious for doing so. They did that exact thing in the Green Bay game where they were down by 19 with a handful of minutes to go and still managed to cover at the number. So it's not fully implausible that that could happen. Like you said, there was 3 games in this series last year. They were determined by a combined 5 points. So maybe if Joaquin Colazo throws less than 5 interceptions, maybe this thing has a fighting chance. But we'll see how Iowa does with taking care of the ball, trying to strike more balance with that offense, and see if it's enough to try and make this thing a game. My pick for this one is the same one that I did last week and the same one that hit. I'm taking the over at 85.5. Quad City's offense, we saw how dominant they can be, really in all of their games to this point in the season. Particularly last week going up against that Iowa defense that did have stretches last week where they were able to get some stops, but in the end, the offense just kind of set them back with short fields, having to constantly go on the field. Iowa actually, believe it or not, 12-6 to the over in their last 18 games. They just have a tendency as masters of getting that garbage time touchdown with like a minute or less to go that shifts money from one set of hands to the other. I feel like we could have a similarly high-scoring affair in this game. And keep in mind, we got 90 points last week between these two teams with a 21-minute scoring drought mixed in the middle. Any semblance of more efficiency on the offensive side of the ball should be able to get us across this number, even though it is the highest total of the week. So that is my play, the over at 85.5, and Cody liking Iowa at the nice number of plus 7.5. Continuing with Saturday's action, we get into the later window, 9 o'clock. Jacksonville and Tucson, the Sharks on the road, favored by 8.5. Over under is 79.5. Jacksonville minus 278 money line. Tucson plus 225. I will make one note here before I rehand the floor over to you, Cody. This is the first time in their IFL history that the Jacksonville Sharks have been favored. And this is their 19th game in the circuit. That is my the more you know of the day. What do you think about this one, Cody?
This one's easy. This one is easy. Minus 8.5 for Jacksonville. We've already started the quarterback carousel for Tucson. Anais Dennis got traded from Massachusetts over. I don't know if Jordan Ambrose is going to start. There's a reason why they traded for a quarterback. I think that they're going to play said quarterback. I don't know. Jacksonville looked very good last week. Jacksonville has looked really good against Massachusetts. I'm going to go with minus 8.5. This is going to sound bad, but I don't know what Tucson is doing. I don't know what their offensive identity is. Their defense is all right, but yeah, only 28 points against Arizona, their only game of the year. I got Jacksonville in this one, man, minus 8.5.
Cool. See, Jacksonville minus 8.5 would be my pick too. But here's the problem. I personally have been scarred beyond repair by Tucson's insane ability to backdoor cover.
Yeah.
There were 3 instances, Cody, I kid you not, 3 times I had the other team on the spread. Things were going exceedingly well. And then Tucson gets the ball with like 30 seconds left, and some guy makes a one-handed catch in the back corner of the end zone to cook the wager. So I'm going to go a different path with this one, and it's actually a bet that has hit in Jacksonville games 5 of the last 6 times. The under at 79.5. We've seen at their best that Jacksonville can control clock on offense, put up points at will, and the defense has given up an average of 23.5 points per game in their first 2. Tucson might make that number, but barely. And prior to their 56-28 loss against Arizona a couple weeks back, that was actually the first time since I think week 10 or 11 of last season when a Sugar Skulls game went over. And 2 weeks ago, it was only by 1.5 points. So as long as Jacksonville doesn't score high 50s, low 60s in this one, which really isn't in their formula, I see another game where this winds up being 45-27, something like that. It is a scary number to go with, especially in the 70s, because you do risk, bunch of possessions, bunch of short fields resulting from it. But I do like this play. So moving on to Saturday's other 9 o'clock game, the San Antonio Gunslingers, fresh off their bye, with a new head coach making the trip to the desert to play Arizona. The Rattlers are favored by 8.5, the over-under 85.5. The Gunslingers plus 225 on the money line, and Arizona minus 278. Cody, we have already seen the Gunslingers pull off an upset as a plus 200 underdog. Is there any hope that they could perhaps do it again against the reigning champs?
They could, but I don't think they're going to. For me, I'm leaning more towards the over on this one. I know San Antonio hasn't been scoring points, but it kind of goes along with Tulsa in the sense of you got to get your offense going at some point. And maybe there's a point where Arizona is up by enough that they let their foot off the gas. San Antonio is able to kind of just add to the total. That's just kind of how I see it. It could be something where it's kind of like the Tucson Arizona game where it's 56 something for Arizona, and then San Antonio is able to score 35. It's the game's already settled, but San Antonio is able to still make the over. So that's what I'm kind of going with.
Yeah, I do like it, especially in a game like this, right, where we've seen Arizona's offense. I mean, Dalton Snead's probably the front runner for MVP at this point. They've put up 56 and 51 in their 2 games to this point. So from that vantage point, it would seem like San Antonio's path to victory would involve obliging the Rattlers in a shootout. So I could definitely see that happening. My pick is Arizona minus 8.5. It's not my most confident play of the week, but it is one where I feel like the Rattlers defense can continue to put the clamps on San Antonio's offense, where at their best, I think they can limit San Antonio to the 20s. And with how efficient that Arizona offense has been, we might only need 42 from Arizona in order to get this to go. The biggest caveat here is that San Antonio's defense, believe it or not, they're no slouch either. But they did lose Ulrich Jones to injured reserve. Tom Manas, who had taken it upon himself to basically rebuild that defense from scratch, is no longer with the team. So there could be some transitional things there to exploit for Kevin Guy and his crew. But I do like the chances of Arizona coming out of this one with a double-digit victory. So they're going to be my play for this one. And I am fully prepared for San Antonio to backdoor cover it. We'll see how it goes, though. All righty, wrapping up the single game previews here. We have Sunday's game, Easter Sunday, 4:20. with the Wranglers and the Bay Area Panthers. Bay Area is giving 8 in the hook, over under 81.5. Wranglers plus 225 on that money line, and Bay Area minus 278. What do we think of both teams at this point, Cody?
I mean, we've only seen Northern Arizona play once, and that was against Fishers. Maybe that was just first game jitters with a new coach, new players, things along those lines. Bay Area looks well improved from what they had against San Antonio. I don't want to say they took San Diego to the woodshed, but they looked really good in that. I don't know, man. I mean, Marvin Kinsey is kind of a bright spot for Northern Arizona. I do like kind of how the offense has gotten along against Fishers. They just kind of ran out of gas there. Fishers look really good. And I don't know, because for me, it would honestly be Bay Area money line, but that spread is too large for me. I can't take a minus 278. That's just not in my blood. So to maximize the profit, it would probably have to be Bay Area minus 8.5.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick. I mean, we've seen Bay Area have games like they did last week against San Diego where they just stomp their foot on the throat of their opposition. And, with that defense that they have, on a good day, as long as they're putting up points, Bay Area spread has every chance in the world to hold its own at the very end. My path to this game actually revolves around a bet that has hit in 14 of the last 19 times. Bay Area games and unders. And this one kind of falls into the same boat as does the Jacksonville-Tucson game, where you have a really high-flying defense going up against an offense that might still be figuring things out. Will CJ Fowler start again for Northern Arizona, or might the Wranglers opt for Christian Arambide, who got some mop-up duty in that Fishers contest a couple weeks ago? I honestly don't see Northern Arizona cracking 30 in this game. So again, it really just comes down to how much Bay Area puts their foot on the gas when it comes to their offensive output. And given Joshua Jones's ability as a rushing quarterback, that might be the tempo that they want to play at. So I'm going to go with the old reliable here. Bay Area under 81.5 as the combined score in their game against the Northern Arizona Wranglers. All righty, Cody, one more objective to meet for tonight, and then we can get on out of here. What are your 3 favorite picks scattered across this week's slate? What does your ideal parlay look like?
For me, let's see. I'd have to probably take Green Bay money line for number 1.
All right.
I would probably parlay that with. Oh man, I would probably parlay that with Bay Area minus 8.5. And then for the third one, let's go ahead and do San Antonio, Arizona over.
All righty. So these are a few of your single game picks. When put together, we are basically at 5-1 for a payout. All 3 stand a very good chance of winning, and if all 3 do, taking home about $60 from a $10 wager. Pretty dang good. I went with this parlay in my post. I was this close to going with Green Bay money line to start it off, but I ended up deciding on Fishers, Massachusetts under 78.5. Believe it or not, the 4 games that Fishers and Massachusetts have played, have been extremely consistent as far as point scoring total. The Fishers games have scored 69 and 70 points, and the Pirates games have scored 70 and 71 points. Both these defenses are legit. Fishers likes to play a very run-heavy game, which is very conducive to low-scoring games. And the Pirates may have some transitional period of things that they're trying to work out. Is it Felix Harper starting quarterback? Is it Behar that starts? And what is that chemistry with the rest of their skill position players looking like? That's just a lot of questions to answer. And both of these teams, unsurprisingly, with those point totals that I mentioned before, 2-0 to the under. It wouldn't shock me one bit if both teams are 3-0 to the under by the time that zeros hit the clock on Saturday night in Lowell. The other pick that I made, second leg, is this one right here. I ended up taking Jacksonville minus 8.5 for the second leg. I just feel like a double-digit victory is inevitable here for Jacksonville. They beat Mass on the road by 21. They dominated Vegas by 17. They look like one of the, if not the, best teams in the IFL right now. And Saturday's game might honestly look like a padded practice. Not to disrespect Tucson at all, but there are a lot of questions to answer. Like the one that you mentioned before. Is it Ambrose that starts? Or is it the newcomer Aeneas Dennis, who seems like he's the fifth quarterback in the past 5 years that Massachusetts has traded to Tucson at some various point? I know Quincy Patterson was the big one last year, for those who remember. So out of fear that the Sugar Skulls backdoor cover, I'm going to throw it in here as the second leg of my parlay. And the third one, all reliable. We could see a scenario where everything on Easter, or not Easter Sunday. What am I talking about? That's the following week. Palm Sunday, I guess we'll call it. The under at 81.5. I just love the Panthers matchup here defensively against Northern Arizona. The Wranglers defense, they're not too shabby either, but we'll have to see how they hold up against a suddenly resurgent Joshua Jones, who's playing in a hashtag revenge game after having won Offensive Rookie of the Year with the Wranglers a season ago. So this is 3 legs. Each leg is minus 110 odds. That gets us to just a shade underneath 6-1. And if we win this thing, $10 turns into just shy of 70. So we will see how that goes. Again, the lay that I'm going with, Fishers Mass, below 78.5. Sharks cover at minus 8.5 against Tucson. That spread is actually 6.5 over at FanDuel, the last I looked. So if you wanted to get the couple of points and get under that key number of 7, FanDuel would be the way to go there. And then if those Saturday legs hit, it'll come down to Sunday's game with Northern Arizona and Bay Area staying under 81.5 to bring us once again to the promised land. All righty, so that wraps up tonight's preview. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Cody for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in, get the vibes going, and offer some predictions on what we may be expecting to see in the week that is to come beginning tomorrow night. So Cody, thank you very much. Best of luck with your picks, and we'll see how things stand when all is said and done.
Appreciate it.
All righty, folks. That was Cody, the creator of the IFL in the Alley YouTube channel. Definitely go check him out, like and subscribe. With that, we will wrap things up for tonight. Looking forward to the action beginning tomorrow. If you do decide to place some wagers, I wish you the best of luck. I will see you at the cashier. Have a great night.